Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. And breaking news, we have much more important things to talk about, or substantial, but the Johnny Depp trial is just concluded as we speak. And I guess his ex-wife, Ms. Hurt, basically got pile driven into the sand. And why is that interesting? Why is it interesting? Because it's kind of a C-minus OJ trial. It captivated the nation for a little bit. But it was also a white trash festival. I think both parties committed joint career suicides. They both, pretty much, if I was a judge, I would order them immediately to remarry because they'll never find anyone that's more deserving of each other than them. Johnny Depp, the boy genius who went through $500 million, didn't even show up for the court hearing. He was playing a concert with Jeff Beck. Any comments?
Yeah.
And if you don't comment,
well, I mean,
might not be deservingly so.
Yeah, it's like neither one of these people are Mensa candidates.
No.
Neither one of them really add anything to people's lives.
Nothing.
I mean, this was absolutely ridiculous. And the only important point that comes out of this is the fact that when most people talk about domestic violence, it's about a man beating a woman. Well, over the course of this case, it was shown that, yes, domestic violence does go the other way, and it's more than just physical. So that's the only standout point that came out of this train wreck.
And the only thing that was resonated with me, or did resonate with me, is if these people can make it, shoot high, my friends out there, because you're talking about dull normal in terms of the intellectual scale. But we'll move on. I don't want to spend any more time on the genius, Dumb and Dumber. So, speaking of dumb and possibly dumber, is Paul Pelosi got his second. Now, I know actually people that have been in AA, okay? Really nice people. I went to high school with them. And essentially anyone can get, not anyone, it happens that people get a possible DUI. But 2 is usually indicative of a drinking problem. Would you agree with that, Dr. Lopkin?
Well, this was more than just a DUI. The cops did not give Pelosi the breathalyzer test for several hours. Now, over the course of those several hours, your blood alcohol level goes down. And even after those several hours passed, he blew the minimums out of the water. So
he hit a Babe Ruth shot around the world.
Yeah, he
but
was
I
drunk.
I still need you to answer the question, though. 2 DUIs is suggestive, we'll say that, of a drinking problem, correct?
Well, the reason I bring up the level is that it's possible for somebody to get 2 DUIs if they're just hit over the level. If
they went to a Christmas party.
And not really have a drinking problem. When you're blowing the DUI levels away after several hours, that's a drinking problem.
Agreed. Now, I really, in this case, do not think it was a drinking problem anyway. I think it was called survival, because I know that if I was married to Nancy Pelosi, I would make Keith Richards look like a Cub Scout.
Yeah, I can understand why he drinks. I think what's more telling is the reaction that people are having. Liberals are going, well, so he drank, so what? And I think Judge Jeanine Pirro put it best when she said she used to prosecute DUIs and drunk drivers. And do you want, people are all up in arms about gun control, but he could very have easily taken out more people with his car than most people that own guns.
Let me interject one thing about that. I got hit by a drunk driver, and I'm not being melodramatic. I am so lucky to be alive. The guy was bombed, and just because he had his headlights off and I wasn't tensing, that's the only way I lived. My car flipped over. And so, and I heard the same thing. I forgot her name. Oh God, and by the way, I don't remember her name. I'm really sorry about that. She's always on the 5. I have no friggin' idea how she's a moron. But we'll just move on with that. I forgot her friggin' name. She's a brain dead.
Her first name's Jessica. I don't know her last name.
What a complete buffoon. I have no idea what's going on there. But yeah, drinking and driving is a dangerous thing. And yes, you'd be put in jail for life. No. But when you're, again, like you said, hours later, he was probably close to a .2. That's like a guided missile. But, yeah, if it was Trump's wife or Trump, a completely different
the media
story.
would have been all over it. But, I mean, it also goes, this is a multi-millionaire. He could have afforded to call a cab.
But no, he's entitled, Dr. Lotkin, because it's probably, I don't know this, obviously, probably got off a couple times because there were rumors that he said, do you know who I am? He took the risk of driving when he was blitzed because you were correct. It was several hours later. He still blew over a .08, by the way. Okay, that's several hours later. And I think it's a sense of entitlement. And by the way, wait a second here. He was driving a Porsche that gets about 10 miles to the gallon. What's going on here? How come we didn't have an electric? Where's the Prius? What's going on here? Could it be liberalism? Do as I say, not as I do, Lotkin?
Well, it's always do as I say, not as I do. And it's hysterical because sometimes those liberal principles will be put aside. AOC got into a Twitter fight with Elon Musk, and now she's talking about the fact that she doesn't want her Tesla anymore. So, the fact that her feelings were hurt are more important than her ideals about the Green New Deal and saving the planet. And I mean, not that the Tesla is going to save the planet, but everything.
Yeah, but also she wears her heart on her sleeve, and she cried when Congress passed or renewed the Iron Dome for Israel because, God forbid, Jews would be protected. No, her true feelings can't come out all the time. An anti-Semite and a moron.
Right. Because like most liberals, the ideals go out the window when it doesn't suit them anymore. Again, Elon Musk was a liberal darling. He's, saving the planet by creating Tesla. Now he's for free speech. Oh my God, how can we can't do that?
Do you know the great thing about it is he's not a wimp and he's feeding on it. Because he gets energy off of obstacles. And he's the person they least like to F with.
Exactly.
He ain't going away.
And with Pelosi, it's the same thing. Nancy gets up and protects the left and spouts these ideals. And meanwhile, her husband is doing insider trading and almost, could kill people driving drunk.
Well, let me ask you another question. We're not exactly Dr. Phil here, but I'm wondering, again, liberalism and what I've come to know about them, a la the Clintons and others. Your wife, the beautiful love of your life, is doing a commencement address at Brown. Wouldn't you, the loving husband who just adores little Nancy,
yes,
be there and glowing in the front row, and then go drink a quart of alcohol later, but at least be and put up in the best place in Providence, Rhode Island. Yeah, well, am I wrong? Maybe I'm missing something. Hello, maybe I'm missing something.
No, I think the two of them have led very separate lives for years. And quite frankly, I mean, I do understand Pelosi makes so many speeches and so many appearances. It's not feasible for him to support her at every one. And I mean, let's face it, she gives the same speech over and over again. How many times can you hear it?
Let me ask you a question. Brown is Ivy League minus. Given the intellectual bandwidth of her speech, could they maybe go down in the rankings in the USA Today polls?
Well, no.
I mean, she probably should have been doing it at a community college.
USA Today would give them props for having her. If they had Kamala Harris, they'd be all over it, congratulating them for getting Kamala Harris. Never mind the fact that the commencement speech would make no sense.
No sense. None.
And of course, if any of these colleges brought a conservative speaker, then maybe their rankings would go down. People would be protesting. How dare you support both sides of an argument?
That would be, I mean, my God, even in a college, God forbid. So Biden, I didn't think he had the capacity to do this, but I guess he's not completely comatose, possibly, is lashing out at his administration, the press, fellow Democrats for not protecting him more. And he also, in his administration, there's big upheavals. Chief of staff, rumors of him leaving. He had 28 African Americans in the White House staff, various levels, obviously. No, the 28 are leaving. I can't imagine he had more than 35. Were they all tokens and just put them in for optics, and then they were never called on? They were never accessed. They had no participation. They said, "Screw this, I'm out of here."
But this is two different issues, actually. So I'll address them separately. The first one is Biden lashing out at his administration. And I never thought I'd see this, but I'm going to give him props for this, because he came out and said, no, when I say something, you don't walk it back automatically. I am saying it for a reason. And I was amazed, but this is actually now him standing up to the Democratic machine that put him in office and who's been controlling him. It's great that he stood up to these people. Maybe if he gets enough, on the ball, he'll actually take them on, tell the left to sit down and shut up, and be the more centrist president that he promised to be during the campaign and that he was as a senator. I'm not saying he's a Mensa candidate, but he has always been more centrist than this presidency has indicated. And it's
also been more cognitively capable as well.
But yes.
So I would agree with you 100%, Dr. Lopkin. Where I find issue is that if he was the Joe Biden of 15 years ago, fine. But
right, the question is, can he do this?
Easter Bunny looking out for him, because he could say something so effing stupid that we could get into a hot conflict with Russia, China, or you name it. He's a moron.
But you know what? He doesn't need to regain all of his faculties and be the Biden of 15 years ago. He just needs to focus enough for a little while to fire these wacko left people that have been pulling him back and pulling him towards the left, and put more reasonable people, more centrist people in. And he can do that quickly. I've seen folks with Alzheimer's, with dementia, they can have extended periods where they are capable. So let's hope he gets one of these periods and he actually does clean house. Now, to the second thing you brought up, the African Americans leaving his staff en masse. Most African Americans at this point have been very vocal about the fact, hey, we got you into office. Why have you not done anything for us? And for African Americans, for Hispanics in this country, Biden has not been a good president. We've talked in the past about the unemployment rate. Biden keeps touting the fact he has record low unemployment, record low unemployment. But when you go into the details, African American employment was lower during Trump. Hispanic unemployment was lower during Trump. Female unemployment was lower during Trump. So basically, it's white males who are getting all the jobs right now. The unemployment situation is not spread out well as it was under Trump. And again, African Americans are switching to Republicans. Hispanics are switching to Republicans because Biden and the Democrats have not done anything for them and they're taking them for granted. Now, given that they've been doing this for so long, I have to assume that these 28 people in the cabinet that are leaving, they basically put forward their opinions, gave strategies, and were ignored.
Yeah, I have to say my original point. I stand by it. I think they were hired for optics because that's what Biden and the Democrats all about is how many women, how many this, how many that, and they were pushed aside. And eventually, like anyone that's qualified or has any kind of an ego, skin in the game, they said, "Screw this, I'm out of here." I bet they weren't even consulted. They were hired. It was all about optics. So when Biden gave a little teleprompter speech, they'd have the 6 or 7 African Americans behind him. And that's really the Democratic Party.
That is what they're doing.
It's a microcosm because they do lip service to these people and they do shit in reality.
That's pretty much the case. And we're also seeing it in the rift between Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris was put on the ticket because she ticked boxes. She was far left, she was African American, she was female, ticked off the boxes that they needed. But she has actually complained that the Biden administration has not listened to her, has not given her any real opportunities. Now, I don't know how much of that is true. I mean, she was made border czar and completely failed.
I think
been
she's
an
very incompetent.
at everything.
No, everything. I disagree with that. I think, I don't disagree that she said that. But I think the Biden administration needs everything, every tool they have in the toolbox. You got a sharp African American woman, which she is not.
I mean, come on.
But if they did have one, she'd be in front of everything. Okay, look at abortion. She would be leading the charge. Perfect spokesperson. Border security. Went to the border once, and it was marginal at best. Never been there since.
No, she's
talking about electric buses.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a world?
Think about what you just said, though. I mean, they should be using Kamala Harris. They need every tool in the toolbox, and who's a bigger tool than Kamala Harris?
That's true, but you need a tool that at least has a cranium, and I think they put her out there, and I'm kind of shocked, and that's really the truth. She was a prosecutor. You think, even though she's maybe no substance behind anything, she could BS her way and talk about whatever she. But when she gets speaking, she just had another word salad a little while ago that you just shake your head and it's like, what? I mean, I find it extremely humorous. I love it, but yeah, I think she's been when you're the head or spearheading the efforts of electric buses. you know that you're in the rearview mirror, no pun intended.
Yes.
Um, so anyway, we have also Biden now. We talked about this a little bit, but blaming the Fed. But it's really funny. Yellen, who is the was a key
She's
part of the.
Yes.
Who is she?
Yellen's the former Fed chair and his chief economic advisor.
Okay. Again, I'm sorry. The older I get, I do shake my head at sometimes. Like, first of all, how did she ever get to be Fed chair? How is she in the White House? Impressive, not so much. She's not exactly Paul Volcker. We'll just leave it at that. I had no idea inflation. Really? You couldn't do the math? You had no idea about the supply chain. Everyone in his administration is just an abject failure. I have no idea who
Well,
appointed these people. She is
it's more than it's more than
a
just that.
grad student would know more than her about economics. She's a moron.
But it's more than just that. Because there were economic advisors from the Obama administration
That's an
who
oxymoron, but anyway.
who told them that this was going to happen. And then you had economists like Janet Yellen's husband, who's, oh no, this is going to lower inflation. This bill will be great. And the problem is, now, first of all, I've worked with economists before. There's an old saying: if you put two economists in a room, you'll get three opinions.
Mm-hmm.
The Biden administration picked and chose the opinions they wanted, whether or not they had data to back them up. So, of course, Yellen parroted the administration party line because she's part of that. So it's more than just not being on the ball. It's also not listening to outside opinions, which was a problem in the Trump administration, which was a problem in the Obama administration. They're
Okay, but there's
focused
certain
on what
things that
they
are
want.
there's certain things that are economic reality. I get to the point. Get you to the point. There's you can talk to 10 economists, they'll give you 15 different opinions. I get it. But let's just say University of Connecticut Economics 101. You have an inflationary pressures to begin with, throwing $3 trillion into the fire probably is going to heat it up. You don't have to be,
Right.
University of
But
Pennsylvania,
the
magna
point
cum
isn't
laude.
the point isn't that they didn't know this. Yellen did not do a bad job as Fed chief. She was a little slow on the trigger, but every Fed president has been. My point is, it doesn't matter if she knew it or not. She was not going to say anything against the party line.
All right. Well, that's where we have the situation we're in. And now we have hyperinflation. We had a reprieve on the gasoline tax, but reading between the lines, because it was more about optics and reality, there was no reprieve for the trucking community that works. I'm talking the independent truckers, small truckers that basically live on the margin. Dr. Lopton, they're pretty much screwed along with the rest of us.
They really
And by the way, let me
are.
interject one thing. We talked about the humanity of these people going out of business. If they go out of business literally and there's no one to deliver your eggs, your bacon, whatever, it's going to accelerate this inflationary cycle.
Yes, it will.
Yes, less drivers.
And what we're talking about, of course, is the gas tax. That when gas prices started to skyrocket, a number of states said, "Okay, we're going to put a part of time in place where we are not going to be collecting these gas taxes. This way, that's 14, 15 cents a gallon less, so that it brings the price down a little bit." As it turns out, the gas tax vacations were not universally applied. So not only don't all states have these holidays, but some of the ones that do, like Connecticut, where we're broadcasting from, they didn't extend that gas tax holiday to diesel fuel. So truckers are still paying those higher taxes on top of the higher prices of diesel, which in turn makes everything we buy more expensive because the shipping costs are more expensive. And now it turns out that there's an annual evaluation. And here in the Northeast, the tax on diesel fuel in the next few weeks is expected to go up. And they've also decided to have a highway use tax here in Connecticut, which is only going to apply to truckers. So that's going to make inflation worse because you're making it more expensive to ship goods from factories and ports to stores. And why don't these legislators understand that runaway inflation is a tax on everybody and it affects the lower class and the middle class more?
Okay, a couple of things on that. Number one, it's optics. It's reasonably before an election in Connecticut and other places. So you make people feel good. By the time they get screwed with what you're talking about, the increases in diesel, Lamont may already be elected. And the other thing is, isn't it all the time more about optics and manipulation than reality? The Republicans might know business more. They don't know shit about marketing and communication. Democrats are experts. What they're really doing is taking from robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're taking money out of the trough, looking good, and just dumping it on truckers. And there's huge problems just with the costs. But if you have increasing numbers of independent truckers bowing out, you're going to get corporate trucking enterprises really dictating the terms of what they want to do, which seems to be a Democratic theme lately, and further increase. So you have two problems. You have higher input costs and then less competition potentially. It's a disaster.
It really is. And, most people don't realize that the bulk of truckers don't work for these large corporations. They're independent truckers. So they don't work, they don't get paid. These are not millionaires. These are folks living paycheck to paycheck, trying to make a living, and they're the ones that the Democrats are screwing while they're going on the campaign trail saying, we're for the little guys. We're going to help the little guys. No, they're not. And it's again, we were talking about it's simple economics. When you raise the costs on things, now, raising minimum wage is a cost, raising taxes is a cost. Those costs are going to be passed on to the consumer, which means the little guy that they're trying to help is the one getting squashed.
And I wonder one thing, I want to just throw it out at you, is could it be also politics? Truckers traditionally are more Republican, conservatively oriented. Could it be a way of screw you?
I don't know, because I don't think you can separate it that easily. Independent truckers that own their own business, they're business owners. They do tend, they want their taxes lowered. They do tend to go Republican. Truckers, however, that work for these larger corporations, they're unionized, and that's the Teamsters Union. That's
yeah,
one
but
of
that's
the
my whole
big,
point, Dr. Lopkin.
is that's the biggest that's the biggest Democratic donor there is. And sure, they're going to bend over backwards to make sure the union can swipe these routes from the independent trucker.
And that's my whole point. So you're supporting
Yes.
big corporate trucking because of unions and other factors, and screwing the independent and more conservative Republican leading constituency, because you don't really give a shit about them anyway. It's not about if you're a little, you see it all the time. If someone's conservative, regardless, an African American that's conservative, something bad happens to them, you never hear about it. If it's the other way around, you can't get enough of it. So speaking of not getting enough of things, California has not gotten enough of the exodus out of their state. They're now Gavin Newsom, who intrigues me, and I can't take credit for this. He looks like something out of Central Casting. If you were the president, that movie came out 25 years ago, The President, or you're casting someone as, the governor of California. Dumber than rocks, good-looking guy, looks the part. He now is initiating reparations in slavery reparations. Who's going to pay for it? Business, working people. And guess what? The exodus continues, doesn't it?
Yeah, every time California puts a new program in place, they raise taxes to help pay for those programs. And of course, they're not good at figuring out what the programs are going to cost, so they never raise enough money, and they always have to go back for more. But we have seen over the past several years a flood of businesses, of residents leaving California. And everything that Newsom has been doing has been fueling that exodus. This is no different.
But who is this guy? I mean, where did he go to college? He is literally dumber than effing rocks. He is so stupid. Forget about ideology. He's just a moron. I mean, does he have anything between his ears?
Well, have you spoken to the average person in California? This is not a bright state. Let's not forget that this is the state that University of California, Berkeley decided that the incoming students from the California educational system weren't scoring high enough, and everybody needed remedial classes. But they didn't want to make them feel bad, so they lowered the standards rather than boosting the education.
Well, that to me is extremely scary, Dr. Lopkin. Forget about the optics. The politics. I get that. It's been going on for years. UC Berkeley, I mean, these are prestigious. If you're China, Russia, or other adversaries around the world, you're looking at a premier educational institution and system producing some of the best minds ever. And literally, you're at the community college level. Scary.
Yeah, our higher education system all over the country has failed miserably. I mean, quite frankly, our K through 12 system has failed miserably. We need to fix our education system and turn out people that can understand what's going on, that know the difference between theory and reality, and can adapt on the fly. We're no longer teaching people to think. We are teaching them to follow directions and not question.
Oh, I think it's worse than that. I think you're talking about in college. College used to actually be college. I know it sounds scary, Dr. Lopkin. It was actually, you had to get into college, and now it's so watered down. And I kind of agree with you, because I've thought about if I had children, I'm not so sure college for what? Now, if you're like some nuclear physicist, I got it. A marketing manager? Like, really? And it's so dummied down. It is literally college is high school 30 years ago. That's all it is. It's a money-making machine. And some of these private schools have check will travel. There you go. Welcome to the University of Carl.
That in a lot of cases, that's what it is.
It is the
And
case.
businesses and companies are realizing this, and they're going, you know what? We'd rather have a technical certification than a college degree because we know the degree is just a piece of paper.
It's a bunch of bullshit. But I also believe in what you were saying. I know if I was an employer, I'd much rather have someone with a couple technical certifications. I do believe in education. That's just me, okay? And maybe an associate's degree with that. Any day in studying, I don't know, Native American studies or for what? Art history. Like, really? Like, really?
No,
I'd rather have, my point is, the point for me is I would admire a young person, man, woman, black, white, that had the brains to figure out their own agenda, not just being a meme of the friggin' college corporate basically machine and saying, I'm going to these skills, these are the ones I want. And in an interview, if you could articulate that, I think you would blow away someone from Trinity.
Absolutely. The important thing is education. And I have repeatedly pulled up this quote from Mark Twain, who said, I have never let my schooling get in the way of my education. There is a difference between an education and a schooling, and what our colleges are doing, and quite frankly, again, our K through 12 is schooling, not education. We need to be educated.
No, I get that, and I'll again in closing, K through 12, 100%, I get it, but college used to be the differentiator of America. Okay, you had these prestigious UC Berkeley, all these schools. You had, I'm sorry, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. When I look at like stupid shows like about some pilot in World War II and they went to UC Berkeley, I'm going, wow, that guy must have been pretty smart. You had to really get into, not everyone got in. You had to have half a brain, okay? And it meant something. And I'm sorry, 50 years ago, college taught you, it had a value. I'd hire a,
yes,
yeah, because it had value. It has no value now, okay? They have a special education in colleges now. Really?
The basic problem is the educational system brainwashed entire generations of people into thinking they had to go to college. Well, guess what? You want to be a carpenter, you don't need college. You want to be a plumber or an electrician, you don't need college. And quite frankly, carpenter, construction worker, electrician, plumber, these are more important than folks that can do marketing or,
It's even bigger than that, Lopkin. It's more like STEM skills and technique. That's what the world needs. You don't need another friggin' moron. By the way, marketing, you should teach that in a weekend retreat. And here's the class: buy low, sell high, know your customers, and the rest you'll learn. Ladies and gentlemen, $1,000. Thank you very much. And you got your Jeff Sherman marketing degree. Take care. So anyway, a great show, Dr. Lopkin. And hopefully Mr. Pelosi won't get another DUI. I hope I'm not in the same. By the way, should they have fast lane, commuter lane, and Pelosi lane to protect people? Because this guy's a guided missile. Who knows?
Well, my comment on that, I'm going to go back to comedian George Wallace, who years ago said, drunk drivers, I think we should have a lane for these people. One lane, both directions.
There you go. Dr. Lopkin, great show. And we're almost up on our 200th show. Close.
Yeah, we'll be coming up in just a few weeks, our 200th podcast. And of course, you can listen to every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and wherever you find podcasts.
And Mr. Pelosi, when you're listening to us, he would never listen to us. Make sure you got both hands on the wheel when you're in the car. Don't look at your cell phone. You got bad enough problems. And another good feather in our cap, I believe we outlasted CNN Plus. That bar's pretty low, though, isn't it?
Oh, that's a pretty low bar, but we beat CNN Plus by quite a lot.
Dr. Loppin, great show. Thanks so much.
We'll see you next week.